Oh, you had your first sec there. There we go. There we go. Nice one. Well, thanks for taking the time to join the Toddcast, boys.
Right
Yeah,
on.
no problem.
Can you
Yeah, great.
believe it's 30 years?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Like it doesn't feel third because of course, growing up here in Vancouver and stuff, Salvador Dream is just kind of it's a name that as a Vancouverite and especially a rock fan, you know that name, but you don't think like that's 30 years ago. It's
True.
it's
Well,
it's quite crazy.
yeah, I mean, once we had the idea thrown at us from Kim Cooke
Yeah,
about remixing and remastering uh, the Ur major label debut. Uh, that's when it kind of dawned on me that it was 30 years ago,
yeah,
and because now we have to go search for the 2-inch
right.
tapes.
And what do you think it was about the band that like Kim took such a to like what is it about that record? Like why did he want to remix it? Why did he want to re-release it? Like is there a driving force there, do you think? Or
Yeah, I think that that was we were his first signing at the label. So I guess, he took us under his wing, or however you want to say it.
yeah,
So we were the first band that he signed to the label and Warner Canada. And so I think it was just kind of like that attachment of us just being the first band. So
yeah. And are either of you surprised that Warner was like, yeah, let's do that?
I
uh,
mean,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, surprised now or surprised
Now,
earlier at 30 years ago.
yeah, well, now I meant,
Yeah, I was surprised for sure because 30 years is a long time, and to take a band that didn't really make them any money or do anything in the market at that time to be excited enough to do it a second time, yeah, that's surprising for sure.
yeah, yeah. And what do you think the difference of time? How do I put this? Like, will it be better received? Do you think today? I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think there's lots of possibility for that. You know, looking back on our mistakes as to why it didn't work the first time, let's just say,
Hmm.
uh, I could kind of pinpoint certain things like if we would have kept touring, that would have helped a lot. We kind of ran out of our tour budget, and we didn't really have strong management to kind of dig us out of situations. And, there was a lot of things now that I look back, it's like, oh, well, if we had that or if we had this, then it would have been more successful because there was bands that we were touring with, like Our Lady Peace, that
Yeah,
did really good, and so that's the thing. You really just have to play your cards that you're dealt with and then try and figure it out.
and
Um,
and how bummed were you guys when it didn't take hold?
well, being in the middle of it, you don't know if it's going to or not. So you just keep going and hopefully you're just, the true marker of it, I think, was the touring part of it. So when our tour kind of ended and the management is kind of telling us, well, you can't tour with 5440 and you can't tour with this person and that person, like, or that band.
Yeah,
Um, I was kind of like scratching my head, going, well, are we that odd? Are we that weird? Are we can't uh, be on bills with other bands that don't sound like us or something? Like, is that gone out the window? Or like that's what I mean. We were so green that, yeah, it would have been nice to play with bands in our own sort of genre or whatever, but I guess there wasn't too many in Canada. And then as far as the States went, that's a whole other ball game that we needed to access as well. And I'll just add that Warner didn't have a compatible US component um, to their signings that they made at the time. So usually you would sign up with somebody like EMI or Sony or something like that, and you'd automatically have a US component to do something with.
Oh,
So
interesting.
start playing shows in the US, but we did a little touring in the US, but we could have exploited that way more, and that would have helped us, I think.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing about even some bigger Canadian bands like Tragically Hip. You would think that they would be equally as big in the States, but they just weren't. Like, sure, they played big shows, but they didn't play shows like they do here in Canada.
Sure.
Right. So like and what is it about that? Why is it so hard for bands to crack that US market being from Canada, do you think?
I don't know. I guess that's a label question in a sense.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say just purely on uh, how much promotion a band gets, right? Like if they have a huge budget to promote in the US, or the US component or arm of their label takes it up and goes, yeah, we really love this band. We're going to push it right through just like any other US band. And maybe that's what sort of was happening. They couldn't get the radio ads. They couldn't get the plays. They couldn't, because they didn't have enough budget to push it through. And I keep going back to the budget thing, but
Oh, it's a huge part of what a band does, though.
yeah, or the label has to spend the money in order to that. And so maybe they feel once they kind of test the waters that it's unrecoupable. So then they cut it off and they don't spend the money. So because in order to the label to feel like they're going to make their money back regardless, right? That's the whole component of it. It's like, well, no problem. But then in our case, no, you get cut off.
And there's of course there's infamous stories about that with labels like almost dropping bands like GNR. GNR almost got dropped by Geffen
Yeah.
because they were like same thing, like we're not, I don't think we're gonna be able to recoup anything. Like Appetite for Destruction is one of the biggest albums of all time, and they almost got dropped.
Yeah. And oh, here's a great example that I think that is sort of what our model could have been if people had the sort of foresight to see maybe is Rush, right?
Mm.
Rush didn't make it until 2112. And then when they hit 2112, that's when the full
Yeah.
weight of their promotion and their whole thing really started. Up until that, there was Caress of Steel and like nobody was feeling it. Nobody, they were on tour. I guess the story is in the video that I saw of them, or the documentary, is like nobody was feeling it. They're on tour with Ted Nugent. He was in the same space or place. And, they weren't feeling Ted Nugent either. I guess. So that's what I mean by management. How do you dig yourself out of that hole where, you've got something, but people just don't believe it yet because you haven't proved yourself in the marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah. And with back to the debut, 1994, mentioned 30 years ago. How much do you think grunge played into the demise?
Yeah, you want to answer that one, Toby, or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think at that time, because we were not a grunge band, we had elements of grunge, but we weren't that. And so in a way, us riding on the grunge wave at that time was a good thing. But then when Kurt Cobain died, the whole scene changed. And I think that was a big part of why our band sort of got shelved, or people just moved on thinking about other things, and other styles of music became popular at that time.
Hmm. And which of the Canadian bands do you think that kind of made it through? Like, which were the Canadian bands that you guys at that time were looking up to, going like, these guys are going somewhere. Like Our Lady Peace, of course, you're touring with those guys. You had to know they're making it.
Yeah, you could see it, like visually see it, like at the shows. Like there's lots of people there, at every show, no matter where they played. So, obviously that's a signal that, you're doing well and
Yeah,
things are.
people are showing up to your shows. That's a good thing. It's a good start.
And that's the true test too, right? So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, I can't really at the time, there was I Mother Earth, I remember,
yeah,
and I know that there was probably a bunch of other bands, but just in terms of major label bands, I don't know if there was too many. Like
yeah.
I think Canadian labels were cautious of the whole thing anyways. You know, uh I thought it was a movement, and like grunge was a term that they used, but it was kind of more of alternative music.
Mm,
Alternative to, say, what they call hair bands, or you know that kind of thing, like 80s spandex, and that was rock at the time, right? Everybody was looking and kind of sounding like that, and then Kurt Cobain came and changed the game. That's how I actually really feel that video hit, and that was it. There was this whole new direction that started to happen. They started to add elements of that kind of stuff, like Black Sabbath, you know, and it was a combination of things. They just kind of fit things together. And it's Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, and Soundgarden, and
Alice in
and that
Chains, and
the
sure.
sort of direction and the sound that everybody was going in, and it wasn't, they didn't wear spandex, and they didn't have their hair all poofy, and they didn't play all these widdly guitar solos and stuff. So,
Yeah,
I think things really changed then, and then there was a new direction, and so I was able to look at it and kind of go, yeah, I'm feeling that. I love that. And I want to be part of it. I want to be part of this so-called movement, even though nobody called it a movement, but they did give it a term. Oh, it's grunge, like, but really there was a lot of different areas where you could go, like Soundgarden was, I don't think was grunge in the sense, like if you listen to Bad Motorfinger or any of these albums, it's really super tight. It's awesome songs. You
yeah,
know, grunge was more like Mudhoney, and like, you know, bits of Nirvana, and you know, I I could go on forever about talking with bands because I love that era, and I love like
yeah.
was
We all do.
grunge. The Pixies, they wrote great songs, and they sounded awesome. And so, was that grunge? I don't know. I kind of feel like Mudhoney was the one that sounded like grunge, but
Yeah, I think
and
if you
that
were
and I
talking
and
like,
I love Mudhoney too, and I would say that that's probably a wrong term for them even. So,
yeah,
what was grunge? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, if you talk to most of those bands, those grunge bands, that they would go like, "Oh, Frank Black, the Pixies," like, yeah, man, like they super inspired a lot of those bands.
Yeah,
A ton of
yeah.
those bands. Yeah. Hey, I was just on the CBC website this morning and see that you and Toby are continuing to work on a documentary.
Yeah.
What is happening there? What's the update on that?
Yeah,
That's
the
exciting.
update. Okay, we have the final sort of performance thing that we need to do, which was play in front of an audience. So that's taking some time because You know, we have jobs that we're doing, and we need to rehearse quite a bit to get that sound and get the tightness of the band together,
Yeah.
and then also book the shows. Like, we haven't played a show obviously in 30 years, so you know, what promoter knows us, where can we go to play? That's the kind of thing that we need to figure out still while we're rehearsing. So
Right.
we've started the rehearsal process, but we really just need to get a show and a deadline and a date. And then our friend Tino Zoffel, who's been doing the editing and directing for the documentary, will finish the whole thing once we get that last piece. So
That's so exciting. Hey, like, how
yeah,
cool
it's
is that?
great, you know,
And
and we've seen a little bit of it so far. So yeah, I'm happy to
mm,
finish it up.
that's great. And so, what was that first jam like when you guys got back together? And like, what was it like in the room?
Well, okay, so we did a little, like, 5 songs or whatever, and we just wanted to play 5 songs because Tino came here and he said, "Well, I need more footage, you know, let's." And he was here in Vancouver, and so because he's from Toronto. Sorry, I forgot to mention,
Yeah.
but we took a day and we shot a bunch of things. We shot out like a small video for Distress, and Exit as well, and then did some other things that he could hopefully use for the documentary. Um, and yeah, it was exciting and fun, and you know, like, it's good vibes all the way.
Totally. That's so
Toby,
great. That's so
Toby,
great.
Yeah, I think it was sort of like putting on an old suit that you hadn't worn in 30 years.
that's a
It
good one.
it felt like going back in time a little bit.
That's so
Really
good.
fun.
You're like, holy crap, the suit still fits.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's
one
cool.
thing I want to add about the grunge conversation,
Yeah.
when the thing that you need to remember is in Canada, there was no grunge. The popular bands at that time were Tom Cochrane and Blue Rodeo and the Bare Naked Ladies. Those were the bands that were charting at that time. So we were completely, um, you know, left field compared to those bands.
Mm.
Lorena McKennitt or
Yeah,
something like
that's right.
that, you know.
That's right.
Truly.
Yeah. So
That
I
was
think,
Canadian
that's a
music,
big
right?
reason why
Stop
our
Tom Connors, you know.
well, yeah, yeah.
So that's what we're competing against. Yeah, and it wasn't really set up like that. So I think some of the managements knew and some of the labels knew what to kind of lean on. But yeah, I thought, you know, MTV was your marker and you should have just jumped on that. It's like, oh, I see that the style is changing. No more hair bands, no more spandex. What's going on here? Better jump on it, you know?
Mm. I mean, they eventually did, but it just took Canada some time to jump on it, though. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, I'm curious about the early years of your lives. Like, what were your parents playing in your house as a kid growing up and stuff?
Okay, Toby, you go first.
Okay, so that's interesting because in my house, my dad loved classical music. So did my mom.
Oh,
So in my house, nothing modern. It was all classical music. And
interesting. And so,
yeah,
how did that influence you to get, like, how did you get to the harder rock part? And obviously, just through friends and stuff then?
yeah. Well, it was a long process because I was surrounded by classical music and I played the violin from age 5. So when I was 13, I didn't enjoy the violin. And my dad said, well, you can't stop until you're a teenager. So I hung through it until I turned 13. And that's the point where he said, okay, if you want to stop, you can. And that's when I decided, okay, no more of that. And I started listening, and I loved guitars. And I'm not sure why. I went to a summer camp when I was a kid.
They're awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
the
right.
camp counselor played a Strat, and I just thought that was the best thing I had ever seen, and so that kind of started a lifelong love of guitars and guitar playing and just guitarness in general. So I kind of at that point started taking. I just was a sponge for guitar music at that time, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
sort of what changed everything for me.
Well, thank God for that summer camp, hey?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but
how
how
about
did you get to bass though after that? How did you
Oh,
arrive?
bass, that's another weird one because at that time, well, I moved to Barbados and I was there and I had a group of friends and we were all budding guitar players. None of us could play, but we all loved guitar. And at one of our jams, somebody said, "Oh, well, we somebody needs to play the bass," and nobody wanted to. And I didn't know anything about bass, and I had never held one or thought about it. But there was a bass in the room, so I said, oh, "Okay, I'll try it." And it, I just put it on, and the great thing about the bass was I just loved the low notes right away,
yeah.
and I just felt like, oh yeah, this is what I've been feeling and looking for.
That's so good, man. I love it. How about you, Russ? What were
Yeah.
your parents playing and stuff as a kid?
Okay, so my dad was a professional guitar player, uh, and he was a huge Chet Atkins fan. And then out of that whole genre of that kind of fingerstyle picking, um, we stumbled on like Lenny Breau, and then that was kind of it. Like as far as a guitar player, still I feel to this day, there's no one in the whole world, even Tommy Emmanuel or any of these guys that can top this guy. And he's been dead for since 1987 or something like that, So Lenny Breau was the king in our house. Like if you mentioned guitar, then that was where you would go to access the best playing in the world. And I could barely play any of that stuff. Now I can actually play some of his arrangements, and they're absolute genius and just so beautiful. So that was a real head start for me. And yeah, my dad was playing, middle of the road country tunes. I joined his band as a bassist, that was and vocalist, because he was playing the guitar parts to all these older type songs. We would play Army and Navy veterans. We would play Elks Club. Play any gig that kind of suited his style, his genre. And yeah, there's a lot of gigs going on. Uh, I'll mention he didn't really pay me that well. When I got an
Dad.
offer from another band, and I said they're gonna pay me $100. He got all mad. He's like, "How could they? They're trying to steal you away." He's
They're
like,
poaching. They're
"Yeah,
poaching
they're
you.
poaching on you." He's like,
Oh, that's
then he
hilarious.
started paying me $100. So
That's
I got
great. So
bucks
music's
for a week.
obviously been in your life the whole time then, like having, your parents that are playing and stuff, and that's
Yeah.
cool.
My mom didn't, my mom enjoys music and she plays just a tinkle of piano, but yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Tinkle.
yeah.
I saw what you did there. I saw what you did there.
Yeah.
What was each of your first concerts? And what do you remember specifically about the night?
Oh, first concert? I think first rock concert was April Wine at the Centennial Auditorium. Yeah, that was great. And Tom Cochrane opened up. So two Canadian bands, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
The guitar onslaught of like three guitar players in the band for April Wine was amazing. I knew all their tunes,
Yeah,
and
same.
yeah, that was awesome concert.
Ooh, what a night.
All of that, yeah, yeah, for sure. They played King Crimson cover at the end or something like 21st Century Schizoid Man, and they play. Yeah, this was really good.
That's cool. How about you, Toby? What was your first concert?
First concert was Third World, reggae band.
Okay.
Yeah, and I saw them in Barbados. Same thing. I had no idea about anything, so I just kind of went and was blown away. Just more by the volume and the the sonic assault of it. You know,
And how old were you for that then?
I would have been 13 at that time.
Oh, young, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
that was part of the thing that made me love the bass. Hearing reggae bass at a high volume like that and feeling it in my chest, that that was a turning point for me.
So cool. And how about the first Salvador Dream show? What do you guys remember about that show and where was it?
Wow.
Man, okay, now you're digging
Oh,
faults.
I think our first show was remember we played, was it the Breakers? Remember, Russ? I
No.
I think it was the Breakers in Point Roberts.
Really?
Or no, there was a club.
Big Bamboo?
Big
No.
Bamboo. Holy
Ooh.
shit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
something like that.
Wow. Okay.
Because I know we did some showcases. That's the thing. We didn't do like an official first show. We
Mm.
kind of just did some shows for labels at the beginning, like Town Pump. We played at the Town Pump, and that was where there was a group of everybody checking. The great thing about our story was that all the labels were interested, like right from the get-go. Funnily enough, we sent out a bunch of cassette tapes to all the labels, and they all came back with deal memos. MCA, EMI, Warner, Sony, uh, I Intrepid Records. No, it wasn't Intrepid Records. It was the same one that
Oh,
Triumph.
Interscope?
No, no, no. It was a Canadian label.
Mm.
Uh, David Bendith, BMG. I forget what that one label was called though, but they were all over us. They really wanted us bad, but then the budgets started to go up on the deal memos and things like that. So that's where we're all. Yeah, so we just played showcases at the beginning, and so we may have played the Breakers, like you say, in
Mhm.
Blaine. No, it's not Blaine.
Yeah, just over it's over the border there, Point
Yeah,
Roberts.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, just the very first shows were short and sort of minimal, and we would just roll up in a bar like Big Bamboo, and then labels would be there, and
That's so
scouting us
awesome.
out and checking us, right? So
Yeah. And I wonder, I'm curious if you guys would have both the same answer on this one, but if I was to say like one career highlight from Salvador Dream, what do you say it is?
I would just say to the touring part of it with like Our Lady Peace. That probably, because it was the most effective thing that we could do, is just play in front of audiences and try and get them on board. And I think that was a good pairing, you know. And we like those guys, and that I think that would be the highlight. Making the videos was cool too, and getting the promo out there. But yeah, I would say that for me was the part where it seemed to be most exciting.
Yeah.
Was
Same,
and you
same
thought
for you, Toby, or what?
you were gaining audiences by playing.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean,
Toby?
that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would say the highlight is tied in with what Russ said. Doing the touring and playing with Our Lady Peace was great. And then I remember we came back to Vancouver after touring for quite a while. And we played a Town Pump show. So it was sort of like the first time we had played in Vancouver for, I don't remember how long, but quite some time. And
Mhm.
because we had been touring and playing constantly, the band was really tight. And we came back to Vancouver and we played a show at the Town Pump, and it was completely full, and the band was great, and we were sounding great. And I remember that being really a powerful show and a powerful night.
Yeah, and the Lee's Palace shows too were good in Toronto. Like
In
I really
Toronto,
saw we smashed those. Those were really good.
That's true.
that's
But
cool.
yeah,
I wonder if you were to talk to Rain Maida from Our Lady Peace, if they would be interested in maybe doing some stuff with you guys in 2025.
yeah,
That
for
would be
sure. Yeah, I was
awesome.
trying to get a hold of him through Facebook, but no answer. So I don't know how to maneuver the. This is the thing, we're still at the no management part where we need to connect somebody that has a network. And right now we've kind of just been using Kim Cook because he has a lot of networks. And Kim Cook was our A&R guy at
Yeah.
Warner, 30 years ago. And kind of now too, he's all in the mix because he started the whole process by by finding the tapes at Warner and asking for permission, and then remastering and remixing the whole record. So it's in the can. We just need to, like I say, the whole promo thing has to come all out at once, which is the documentary has to be finished, and and then maybe attach it to a show and perform, and people can watch the video or watch the documentary and see us play. That kind of thing, But that's all got to be worked out
Oh
over
yeah.
time. We'll
There's
figure
ducks
it
in a
out.
row and all that sort of thing, right? But
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the idea would be to get it out in 25, do
yeah,
some shows, do some touring and stuff.
yeah,
Fuck yeah, boys.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That's
But
so
yeah,
exciting,
I
man.
think what you said, it would be great, if we could tour with Our Lady Peace now. Our Lady Peace, as far as I know, aren't touring or haven't been playing, or are they even still a band? I don't know.
They're still a band. They still play.
They
Yep.
still play. Well, that would be phenomenal to play with them again now.
Yeah.
I'll tag. I've known Rain for a long time, so I'll tag.
Is that right? Okay,
throwing this
yeah,
stuff around.
okay.
I'll be like, "Hey, Rain, like,
Yeah,
check this interview out, bro." Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
cool. Speaking of social media and all that stuff? Like, where are you guys most active? Is it Instagram, Facebook? Like, where do you guys, if
Well,
you're online checking that stuff out, like, where do you go?
sure, yeah. We have Instagram page which has a link tree on it.
Okay.
We have Facebook page, Salvador Dream official Facebook page. And I know there's some other things that we have too. But I think the link tree link in Instagram is the one that's going to take you to all our promo. Like
Yeah.
we have the bookends of the major label debut, which is called but the bookends are the very first 5-song EP and the 3-song EP that happened after. And they're all online, Spotify, all the major platforms, all digital platforms we're on, apparently. So we got that through DistroKid or whatever. So
Yeah.
we've got that going. So if you want to reach us or you want to listen to our music, that's where you can check for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap it up here, boys. I will
Awesome.
make sure to tag you when I'm throwing this stuff around in the new year. Great
Please.
to see you. Hopefully, Salvador Dreams around for a long time and get to see some shows here in Vancouver, which would be phenomenal.
Awesome. Well, definitely get you out there, hopefully.